ICU capacity on the brink. The state of Washington, there's a lot of news coming out in regards to COVID in the state of Washington, including some breaking news. It's actually come out while the show has been going on. And that information was feeded to me. Thank you so much. That's why I say there's a great team that you don't see behind me. Some information was fed to me at feeded. Feeded is not a word. Fed to me.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
I'm allowed to self-bird every now and then, right? Feeded. I know some chud's going to be like, Malcontent can't speak English. He said feeded. There's also probably some chud out there going, feeded's a word. Fed. Information that was fed to me. I shouldn't be laughing on such a grim topic, but I guess we need a little levity here. A couple of things that are going on. Yesterday, the state of Washington set a grim milestone, and that grim milestone is not 3,000. We're going to get into that. It's not 3,000 Washingtonians who have died from COVID. And some of you right now will be going, yes, they did. No, and I'll get into that in just a second. That's part of the breaking news. But 49 Washingtonians died yesterday from COVID, which is a record number of Washingtonians. It is more single-day deaths than we've had at any point in this pandemic that it continues to go on in this state. The state of Washington lowered total state fatalities by 166 earlier today, bringing the total number down to, I believe, 2,850. If it's like 2,852 or something, don't get all, It's like 2,850. Don't have people here holding a sign up going, you got it wrong. I would love that, but COVID. The reason they brought the number down is that they research each of the fatalities that are attributed to COVID. And if they find that COVID was not one of the factors, then it's taken out, right? Because this is where the chuds...
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
Go, see, they're cooking the books. They're cooking the books because you die in a car crash. They die in a car crash. They tell us this for the COVID in the hospital. They say they died from COVID. They didn't die from COVID. They died from a car crash. Yeah, but the state of Washington goes through and audits those deaths. And even though the person, say, was COVID positive when they showed up in the emergency department with bones sticking out of their body and bleeding to death, on the information on the medical records was car crash, COVID positive. But then they go through and investigate and go, oh no, they didn't die from the COVID. They died from the car crash industries. Oh, and by the way, cardiac arrest is not a cause of death. Cardiac arrest is what kills everybody. I've heard people go, they put the cause of death as cardiac. Everyone dies of cardiac arrest. Literally, that's what kills you. Your heart stops beating, you die. You go, what if you get your head cut off? Your heart will stop beating very, very shortly after your head has been cut off, and you will die. That's the end of it. Oh, my God. Guys are killing me. Anyway, that's why 166 have been backed out. Tonight, grim news coming out of the United States. More Americans have died from COVID-19 than all of the combat deaths in World War II. Now remember, combat deaths in World War II are from December 7th, 1941 to August 11th, 1945. We are talking from beginning of February, late January, because I know there's a couple of deaths in California that were attributed to COVID. I think the first one was like January 21 or January 22 to December 10. So less than a year. More Americans have died. And we are on a trajectory right now that as we cross the 1-year milestone of COVID coming to the shores, we could be at 400 or 425,000 dead Americans. If you project those numbers out into the summer, even with vaccination distribution, we may rival the 1918 flu pandemic which is estimated 675,000, because they didn't keep daily records there, and they didn't have the capability to do a flu test, because they didn't even they knew viruses and bacteria, but they didn't have tests for them, and nobody had seen a virus yet because there was no microscope capable of seeing a virus in 1918. Stop being so pedantic. Let's get into those ICU numbers. In Everett, Washington, Providence Hospital, they are at 100%. Here in Kirkland, according to the New York Times, Evergreen Hospital is at 90%. Overlake Hospital in Bellevue is at 64%. See, there's no problem. They're at 64%. They're at 64% because they have no staff. They have a severe staffing shortage problem at Overlake because they don't have enough staff to begin with, and a number of their staff members are sick. Harborview Medical Center has more COVID patients today than they have had at any other point during the pandemic. Statewide bed utilization for ICU is at 80%. Now, some of you may be, well, 80%. That means there's 20% left. That's good. No, it's not good. Hospitals are not staffed to be at 100% capacity. It's not about the beds. Hospitals are staffed to run at 60 to 80% capacity. Well, why is that? Why will they have the 20% extra beds? Because hospitals are part of emergency response. So, for example, knock on wood, we don't want this to happen. Well, let's say a plane crash tonight down at SeaTac Airport, and 100 people under normal circumstances are rushed to Harborview Medical Center. That is what that extra capacity is there for, that extra 20% for short-term surges. We're not in a short-term surge here. This has been going on since March, up and down, but it's just been going on. And the other challenge you have is this is throughout the country, and we're actually, Jay Inslee said, we're the best in the country for wearing masks. Like, percentage of people are like, I'm going to wear a mask. It doesn't get better than Washington State. We're so friggin' screwed. We're so screwed. And states like Idaho, where chuds are literally threatening the lives and health and safety of 12-year-old children because they don't want to wear a mask. Yeah, Idaho is sending their sick people to our state. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? I say personal accountability. Close the frickin' border in Idaho. You can go figure it out yourself. Why should we have to clean up your irresponsibility and use our precious resources up? Well, that would be very Republican of me, wouldn't it, Mitch McConnell? We talked about this on Monday, but the numbers have gotten worse on Monday. And I know I'm using some of the same spiel that I used on Monday, but it bears repeating for this. We know that the FDA has recommended in a vote, 17 to 4-1 abstention, to go, why, yes, we're going to go ahead and use the AstraZeneca, not AstraZeneca, the Pfizer, the emergency for Pfizer. That doesn't mean it's approved, but it will almost certainly be approved. Remember, 62,000 doses, 182,000 doses, 2 doses to become immunized, 28 days apart. 28 days after the second dose, you then achieve your 70 to 90% protection depending on the vaccine that you get. And then we have questions on how long of the veracity. We know out of the United Kingdom that there have been a couple of people who have had severe allergic reactions. However, the people that have had severe allergic reactions are people that historically have had severe allergic reactions to other immunizations. There has been no fatalities reported up to this point. And to the Q followers who say crazy stuff like, this is for mind control.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Remember, England has been immunizing a bunch of people in their 90s, so I guess Bill Gates is preparing his mind control army to be a bunch of pre-Alzheimer patients in England who have to wear diapers. Like... The numbers, but they went down. Well, there were almost 2,500 new C disease COVID cases that were identified according to the latest news in the last 24 hours. So we continue to tick at this 2,500 pace, which means we will continue to tick at adding 130 to 150 patients to our hospitals on the daily. And that is kind of the growth that we're seeing at this point. But look at the death rate. The death rate is down to 1.5%. Yeah, the death rate is down to 1.5% because, wait for it, math.
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
Now, I know that math is very scary to you, like especially when it comes to things like counting ballots in an election that your preferred candidate lost by 7 million votes. But let's get into the math a little bit. You don't get a COVID test and then get your COVID test is positive and immediately get teleported to the hospital and then 5 minutes later immediately die. You may get a COVID test and then they may tell you right now what they're telling people, unless they're really sick, is they send their happy butts home. They're sending people home with iPads and oxygen monitors and telling them like how to self-monitor at home and doing the digital check-in. And they're literally doing this because there's no room at the hospital. So what they're basically saying, hey, you get to play doctor and nurse while you're so sick and you can't figure out what's going on. Oh, and by the way, one of the symptoms of this disease is losing your mental faculties if you start getting a bad version of it. But good luck with that. That's literally what they are starting to do in this country with people. Of course, it could be worse. You could be in states like North Dakota or Utah, or in El Paso, Texas, or Amarillo, Texas, or the panhandle of Idaho, where they're rationing care, which literally means doctors there are deciding who gets treatment and who doesn't. And if you don't get treatment, you die. And that treatment doesn't just apply to people with COVID. That could apply to somebody who has a stroke or severe burns or has had a heart attack. And remember, the heart attack means that coronary artery disease killed you, not the fact that you had cardiac arrest. I don't even know where I was going with all this. I guess the bottom line that I have in going with all this is, for the love of God, wear a flippin' mask. Stop. It's like there's no even sense in saying stop at this point. It is predicted that 45% of all restaurants in the state of Washington will be out of business by the end of next year. 45% of all restaurants out of business. That's Jay Inslee's fault. He should just... No. You know whose fault it is? It's your flippin' fault because you won't wear a piece of cloth over your face. You claim that you don't want to live in fear, but you fear vaccinations, 5G, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and wait for it, mail-in votes, and Jay Inslee. Yeah. So cut it out with the false bravery, okay? Wear a stinking mask. Support the economy, and let Mitch McConnell know he needs to do friggin' something and not do this $2.5 trillion transfer of wealth on the American people.